Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Weekly Movie News Podcast. This week's news brought to you by The First Domino. Yes, well, let's start with an update on the Netflix vs. Paramount bid for Warner Bros. Discovery. We haven't touched on it for a while, so here is the latest. Paramount has made what feels like 15 separate bids for the purchase of WBD, and even though each one was more enticing than the last, Warner was sticking with its first pick, Netflix. Netflix, under a massive amount of fire for its business structure, started to make more and more concessions, from promising a 17-day release schedule for Warner planned films to now promising a 45-day release window. Though many are skeptical of the promises holding, and that goes for Christopher Nolan, now the president of the Directors Guild. Co-CEO of Netflix, Ted Sarandos, also went to Capitol Hill to get berated by senators from both parties on the implications to the workers in the industry, monopoly fears, social agenda fears, union security. Paramount, in the midst of this, has once again offered a revised proposal to Warner, adding some more upfront cash to the deal and taking care of regulatory concerns and giving a better shareholder value. The question is, will this bid be just as swiftly rejected as the others? Well, maybe not this time. A major shareholder of WBD is Ancora Alternatives, LLC, an investment firm that has three self-published strategies. So first, event-driven multi-strategy dynamic allocation, then commodity markets, both long-term and short-term, and then the third stated strategy, shareholder activism. And Ancora is letting Warner know they actually quite like the Paramount deal. They believe the bid is not being taken seriously enough, and if the Warner board strikes down Paramount once again, they will vote no on the Netflix deal. Ancora isn't a small player here. They have $11 billion in assets and a $200 million stake into Warner Bros. Discovery. And they are making the case that when it comes to maximizing value for the shareholders, Paramount's deal could very well be better. So in a press release from the company, they say the revised proposal, quote, makes clear the Paramount offer includes significantly more cash, the backing of proven Ellison Trust, and a viable path to regulatory approval, thanks to the modest size and studio legacy, end quote. Now, that was the news as of Sunday night, and now on Monday, Warner Bros. Has come out and said yes, they are going to consider Paramount's offer more seriously. They do need to officially notify Netflix first, which will happen, and then further negotiations with Paramount will continue, as Warner will try to get the deal to $30 a share. So why am I getting into this so much? Because as I said in the past, I'm not going to spend every week going over the latest. So much of this is just kind of let's just let the dust settle kind of thing. So once in a while, I'll bring it up, and when I do, try to be specific on what's going down when something could be important, which I think this is. It very well could be the first domino to topple here. A U.S. Senate that seems wary, an actual better deal taking shape from the competitor, and a major shareholder publicly giving opposition. There's also rumors that nonprofits and unions are going to be banding together to give an all-out push to derail the Netflix deal. So yes, absolutely more to come in the weeks and months, but I have to say I think Paramount ends up with this, but of course we'll see. As for what is better, I kind of was considering the NBC Universal Comcast being the most preferred, but I do think Paramount would be the best. Paramount makes movies for movie theaters primarily and only has so much output. Even with the Ellison takeover and CBS and everything, Paramount's market cap is just $7 billion. Netflix's is $325 billion. But anyway, I guess the truth remains, let's just let the dust settle. Okay, on to some more headline reads here for you this week. America's all-around good guy Tom Hanks is sailing back into the waters for a sequel of his 2020 film Greyhound over at Apple. There was a rumor that Apple wanted a trilogy of films, so this just may be the middle child. Hanks is returning as Captain Krause, and he also wrote the screenplay. Production already started on the movie too, so we'll have this one in the not-too-distant future. Greyhound did have mixed reviews, but it was just made for $40 million. So if Apple throws some more juice into this, maybe we'll get another decent Hanks war film again. We reported a few months back on the announced Mummy 4 with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz set to return. It does still remain official, and in fact, a release date has been set. So, May 19th, 2028, here comes The Mummy. Filming will take place probably next year, and I have to say, not loving the writer here for the project, David Cogshell, writer of The Family Plan, starring Mark Wahlberg, and The Family Plan 2, starring Mark Wahlberg, and then some pretty poor rated films. But anyway, it's 2028, so plenty of time to grouse about it later. Leonardo DiCaprio starts shooting his next film with Marty Scorsese and Jennifer Lawrence in 2 weeks, but the news here is that Leo said publicly that the Frank Sinatra biopic isn't actually dead yet, and it's currently still in the works. So Leo is keeping old Blue Eyes alive with Marty. And speaking of music biopics, the Mamas and the Papas are getting one too. Oh, joy. I mean, nothing against the Mamas and the Papas. I like that one song too, just as everyone else likes basically just that one song from the Mamas and the Papas. But boy, when has the barrel been scraped dry on these music biopics? We may never know. Director Mike Flynn, currently working on The Exorcist reboot and a Carrie TV show, it's been announced that he will then be directing a remake of Stephen King's The Mist. Flanagan really likes adapting King's novels, and King seems to really like collaborating and appreciates Flanagan as a director. The Mist is a big one though, but it seems very much in Flanagan's alley, and we are rooting for him. And now the big news here. Speaking of reboots, Charlie just can't quit the ladies because Charlie's Angels reboot is in the works over at Sony. Yes, the script is currently being written by Pete Cherrielli, who wrote The Proposal and Crazy Rich Asians. We, of course, had the Lucy Liu, Cameron Diaz, and Drew Barrymore successful run of Charlie's Angels in the early 2000s. But then we had a pretty big drop-off on the Elizabeth Banks 2019 reboot with our girl Kristen Stewart, but it did not work. So here we go again, and we'll keep you posted when Charlie decides to name his angels. Finally here, remembering some actors we lost this week. First, actor Bud Cort, not exactly a household name, but he was known for playing Harold in Harold and Maude from 1971. He passed away at the age of 77. James Vanderbeek passed away last week from colorectal cancer. Beek was open about his diagnosis for a couple of years, and even looked like he was going to pull through, but sadly, at a very young age of 48, he had succumbed to the cancer. James was known for films like The Rules of Attraction and Varsity Blues in 1999. His biggest acting role was playing the lead role, Dawson Leary, in Dawson's Creek. The show ran for 6 seasons and was wildly popular. James starred in all of its 128 episodes. And then a true acting and Hollywood legend, actor Robert Duvall passed away peacefully at his home on Sunday. He was 95 years old and had a life and career worth celebrating. His first acting role was in 1960, and from then to 2022, in his last role in The Pale Blue Eye, Duvall would star in 145 projects. From early TV gigs to the greatest films of all time, Robert Duvall literally has too many great performances to mention, but to mention a few, of course, he's known for his roles in Network, Tender Mercies, THX 1138, Open Range, The Great Santini, True Grit, Lonesome Dove, of course, unforgettable roles in The Godfathers and Apocalypse Now. 7 times Oscar nominated and winning for lead actor in Tender Mercies, Duvall is among the greats and deservedly so. A titan of the past in Hollywood with a certain grit about him. Some of his earliest days working and trying to scrape by had him sharing an apartment with a couple of roommates, Gene Hackman and Dustin Hoffman. Robert Duvall will always be remembered when it comes to movies, with his name etched into Hollywood. Now let's jump on over to the box office for this past weekend. So 5th biggest film this weekend was Solo Mio with $6.5 million. 4th was Send Help, making $8.8 million. 3rd for the weekend was newly released Crime 101 with $14.3 million. 2nd was newly released animated kids film Goat, and that made $27.2. And the biggest film this weekend was the hot and steamy Wuthering Heights, making $32.8 million. A pretty good February weekend here. Valentine's Day at the theaters turned out to be a thing. Coming up this Thursday, Vincent Daly will be watching, rating, and reviewing. It's a lot of Wuthering Heights, so buckle up. We have Wuthering Heights from 1939, directed by William Wyler. Then Wuthering Heights from 1970 by Robert West. Then Wuthering Heights from 1992 by Peter Kaminsky. And finally, newly released by Emerald Fennell, Wuthering Heights. Very excited to break down the differences, the acting, the great, and the not so great here. Can't wait to talk to Vin on Thursday about that. But that's it here for your weekly movie news here. We'll leave you today with a quote from an actor, Robert Duvall. I always figure, from cradle to grave, we all have our individual journeys. And maybe my journey was a positive one, and I accomplished certain things without stepping on too many toes. And all right, folks, the Daily Ratings Weekly Movie News Podcast, that was it. See you on Thursday.